when people get mad at me for pointing out Zohran is unpopular, I fully get it. I mean, some of these complaints are stupid, like people thinking we pull their own readers. That's just like the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. The thing where people are like, why are you trashing on Zohran? He hasn't been elected. It comes from a place of wanting to defend the fact that there is something new, there is something fresh, and there is something hopeful. And I understand why people are defensive. My opinion is that something being new and fresh for Democrats online does not necessarily mean it's something that will help us win and knock MAGA out of power. But that's not the way other people see it. And that's fully fine, because I think like at least that shows, you know, people really care and people just want something to hope for. That's why they get mad. And I think it's okay.
All right. Well, Lakshya, you have a hard out at 5, and I do want to make some time to get into something that you made waves over this weekend.
Hutch will never miss an opportunity to dump on leftists. We got to get that. We got to squeeze that in.
No. Hang on. So just for context, Lakshya came out with a poll comparing 5 or 6 Democrats' national popularity, and a lot of people got really upset. I mean, I was seeing people on my timeline, like dozens of people, like referencing this poll. A lot of people had really strong opinions. What I want to start the conversation with, however, is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you like Mamdani, right?
I actually like him, yeah.
Okay. So that context out of the way, why don't you dive into these numbers and explain what we're looking at here?
So the most unpopular Democrat in our database out of the 5 that we tested so far is Zohran. And I feel like people say, oh, that's because, you know, he has the lowest name ID, so only Republicans have heard of him. But that's not actually true. Like, his unfavorability in an absolute sense, -13, is actually like worse than Harris, worse than AOC, worse than Newsom. If you dive down and you say, okay, maybe it's just the Republicans that don't like him and Republicans all know of him, so it looks bad artificially. Well, let's then go by subgroup. Let's see, is he any more popular with independents than AOC, Newsom, et cetera? No, he's significantly more unpopular. He's like double digits more unpopular than any other Democrat other than Chuck Schumer with independents and with Democrats. Among Democrats, the dude has a +50 approval rating when Harris is like +73, Newsom is like +66, AOC's +68. Among independents, it's like -32 for him and it's -18 for Harris. So these are numbers that suggest Zohran is just straight up not popular nationally. And look, I would be fine with that. He's running for New York City mayor, not for mayor of America. So I'd be fine with that. But then why are we talking about what should Democrats do to embrace Zohran nationally like Chris Van Hollen is trying to tell us to do? That's my point.
Well, Lakshya, I guess my question on this would be like devil's advocate. Obviously, the biggest number here is that people just don't know who he is, right? So that's going to play a huge part in it. And then the people who do know who he is, whether independent, Democrat, or Republicans, are getting, you know, hyper polarized coverage of either this guy is the savior of the new Democratic Party or this guy is going to introduce communism and do another 9/11, right? Like that is kind of the exposure that people get. So how confident are you that if this, like, you know, obviously this 4-10 years in the future, if he was running on a national stage, because he is in the national conversation, but it's just the city of, well, yeah, a big city, but it's just a city election. If he was exposed on a national stage, running for a national stage, do you think that these numbers would shift significantly, or do you think that kind of projects outward in the same way?
Well, I think one thing to know is Zohran can't run nationally, right? He was born
not for president,
not eligible, but if he ran for Senate, let's say, like, numbers change. Not really, and here's why. When was the last time a New York City mayor, like a Democratic New York City mayor, got more popular? Look, de Blasio ended up doing a lot worse after the first term. People just hated his guts. Eric Adams is Eric Adams. Most big city mayors in general have, especially like left-wing big city mayors, have seen their tenures just plagued by like infighting between departments because the police department wildcat strikes, and you know, you get a whole bunch of people getting mad that you can't actually do as much as you said you would. How many people do we really think are going to like Zohran once he gets in office? Like, that's my thing. I don't know if I would be willing to say that he's going to get more popular. Like, that's my thing. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he governs really well, and maybe he just ends up being like an absolute G, and all of a sudden New York City's doing great. But That's usually not a safe bet to make with politicians in this type of era when anti-incumbency really drives so much, especially in big cities.
Can I ask you to project that real quick again? I want to scroll down and make a point about the comparison between some of the Democrats in terms of Democratic approval, because there's perfect, exactly. So there, obviously, Chuck Schumer has the lowest Democratic approval, and so I'd like you to talk a little bit about that. But like the story of this graph here, tell me what you think of this. Doesn't seem to be an ideological story, right? Like, what is the daylight between Zohran Mamdani and AOC in terms of politics that's driving such a divergence there? Likewise, Chuck Schumer, seen as more moderate than someone like Gavin Newsom or AOC or indeed Kamala Harris. And so to the extent that people are drawing like ideological stories, like Democrats should be more centrist or Democrats should be more moderate. Is that what this is telling us? So so address that, please, and also the Chuck Schumer independently.
I don't think you can make an ideological link from this graph. I think if you're to make an ideological link saying moderates do better or worse, you would have to do it on other data, not this. I would never use this graph to say that ideology is the determiner. I would use other evidence for that. Now, with that said, what does it say? I mean, I don't think it's true that Zohran is similar to AOC by every metric, because here's the thing. What Zohran is proposing is a good deal more radical, for better or for worse. It's a good deal more bold and brave than what AOC has proposed in a lot of ways. And I think like it's worth noting it, right? Free buses, for example, or like the public grocery stores, those are pretty big. I think...
I mean, you say that, but like the Green New Deal is an ambitious project that is tons of government paying for stuff. She is in favor of Medicare for all. And crucially, she's an early endorser of what Zohran stands for and is supporting all of his policies. And so I hear you that she didn't maybe initially propose some of them. Some of the reasons is because she's a federal representative. And so it's not specifically germane to her. But in her context, in Congress, I mean, she's proposing free stuff for people. And it's going to be paid off. How's it going to be paid? Increasing taxes on the rich. And so I hear what you're saying. Maybe he's perceived that way because he's Muslim. Maybe he's perceived that way because the policies themselves have a little bit more of his stamp, personal stamp on them. But is it ideological? I guess you already answered that. But yeah, sorry, talk more about that. Apologies for
It's not. So the thing with AOC is that AOC at this point has had almost a decade in the limelight as a Democrat, right? She has essentially... I don't want to say moderated a lot since she became a national figure, but I will note, right? Like her relationship with the DSA is basically on the rocks. DSA in New York City actually like hates her guts, half of that wing, though then again, they kind of hate everyone. But the thing with AOC is like essentially, for all intents and purposes, rapidly approaching generic Democrat. She is an incredibly talented politician. She is incredibly skilled. And what's bigger is that, like, after so long of the Republicans just hitting her from one end, Democrats slowly coming to defend her from the other, and her changing her policies just a little bit, and the Democratic Party moving more in her direction over the last 6 years, which is a credit to her. I think the daylight between how AOC is perceived and how the Democratic Party is perceived has shrunk. That is not the case yet for Zohran. And so I think because of that, and the best way I'd tell you to look at this is look at Zohran's favorability numbers with Democrats. They haven't come around to him. They're not in his camp. Independents are not in his camp. They're much more in favor of AOC. They're much more in favor of Newsom than they are of Zohran. Now, you do bring up Chuck Schumer. That's a really important point. Why is Chuck Schumer so important? It's because one of the most unpopular things in America is being a partisan, like a hardcore partisan as a leader. And the thing with Chuck Schumer is he's a leader of the Senate Democratic Caucus. Democrats hate him because they think he's feckless. Republicans hate him because he's the Democratic leader. Independents don't like him because there's nothing that he has done for any of them other than being on TV representing the party that they hate more than any other political entity in America. So Chuck Schumer being unpopular is the same reason Mitch McConnell was unpopular. It's the same reason that, like, you know, Paul Ryan started getting hits in 2018. It's just the party leader in Congress always ends up being unpopular. I do see a question on the screen. Anyone want to ask Lakshya what AOC's national numbers were before she got elected? Yeah, AOC's national numbers were -2. Zohran's are -14. We are talking about a very big gap here.
Okay, cool.
So
Can I ask?
go ahead, guy.
I just want to ask you quickly. I see it says responses from August through October. Did you see any changes between August and October for Zohran or Chuck?
No, so let me tell you how we did that, right? In August, we tested Harris and AOC. In September, we tested AOC and Newsom. And in October, we tested Zohran and Chuck Schumer. And we basically took the numbers for each of those surveys, and then we were like, okay, this is Zohran's numbers, these are AOC's numbers, these are Gavin Newsom's numbers, these are Harris's numbers. We combined AOC's numbers from August and September. We took Newsom's numbers just from his September survey, because that's all we had. We took Harris from August, and we took Zohran and Chuck from October.
Really quickly, Lakshya, Desda did want to clarify. He was referencing AOC before she got elected, because Mamdani still hasn't held the office yet. When you said the -2 for her, was that before she got elected, or was that
before she got elected?
Okay.
In Gallup, she was 24-26. Mamdani in our poll is 21-35.
Gotcha.
And these are national numbers for both.
National numbers for both.
Okay, so you got a lot of people that were really fucking pissed at you, and I'm curious what you make of that anger. Like, where do you think that comes from? And do you think that perhaps forecasts some more intense conflict the closer that we get to the next election cycles?
I think it's already happening. I think the fact that Graham Plattner still has so much support in the Democratic electorate, despite all of this, shows you that there is a big frothing massive rage towards the Democratic leaders from the Democratic voters, because they believe that the Democratic Party has failed them. They think that after 8 years, was it worth getting thumped just so we ended up back here? You said you'd beat Trump. You said we'd get policy change. You said we would remake America. We gave you the power and none of that shit happened. So what are we doing here? And I have sympathy for that. When people get mad at me for pointing out Zohran is unpopular, I fully get it. I mean, some of these complaints are stupid, like people thinking we pull their own readers. That's just like the dumbest shit I've ever heard in my life. But like the thing where people are like, why are you trashing on Zohran? He hasn't been elected. It comes from a place of wanting to defend the fact that there is something new, there is something fresh, and there is something hopeful. And I understand why people are defensive. My opinion is that something being new and fresh for Democrats online does not necessarily mean it's something that will help us win and knock MAGA out of power. But that's not the way other people see it. And that's fully fine, because I think like at least that shows, you know, people really care and people just want something to hope for. That's why they get mad. And I think it's okay.
My sense of things like these days, in terms of what's driving a lot of the conflict, is that the more progressive wing of the party are numerous. They represent somewhere between like a quarter and 40%. Is it? You tell me. Like, what percentage of the Democratic Party electorate would you say are, you know, in the Bernie wing or progressive wing?
Oh, I actually have. I can give you like some of these numbers, right? So I would say, in like the hardcore Bernie wing, what I really assume you're talking about is like who identifies as like very liberal, right? Like if you wanted to put it out this way, you may say like the Harris wing is like liberal and moderate, and the Bernie wing is like very liberal and liberal, right?
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to be as broad as possible, but I mean, like there's different subgroups or whatever, but you know, yeah, to the left of the moderate wing, like what percentage of the party are we talking about here?
I would say about 40% of the party at this point, 30 to 40% is that like critical mass of like, I love Bernie, I love AOC, and I would pick one of them if it was in a head-to-head against, you know, like Newsom or Harris or whatever. And the other 60% is still more like liberal to moderate.
Gotcha. So one of the big problems, as I see it, is that wing, they're very aspirational. They want transformational, big, bold policy platforms. And these platforms require a 60 vote threshold in the Senate. And so that sort of ability to accomplish that legislation doesn't seem likely anytime soon. Now, like I think you mentioned the last time that you were on, that something can happen and the political wind shifts so much that you just can't plan for that sort of thing, like a depression or
COVID.
war, COVID, these sorts of things. But barring some pretty big event, their policy goals seem pretty out of reach, at least for the short term. The long term, maybe demographics continue to shift or whatever. How do you reconcile that if you're Democratic leadership and you're trying to keep a coalition together?
People are always going to get mad at you, right? Like, people will always be angry. The thing is, there's nothing people love more than winners. Okay, like, fundamentally, every time someone wins an election, their numbers from every single wing grow up and like just glow up, because people want to see what they want to see in a winner, and they get hopeful and they like hope. The best thing I would ask you in this regard is, like, why is Josh Shapiro just like universally popular with Pennsylvania Democrats? Left, right, middle of the road Pennsylvania Democrats, they all love the guy. He's not a progressive.
It's because he's competent, right? He's done a good job as a governor.
It's because he's competent, right? When you're in the wilderness, you have time for all these fights. When you're losing, you have time for all these fights. When you're unpopular, that's when people want to fight. But if you figure out a way to win, if you figure out a way to get popular, if you figure out a way to keep the country running smoothly, people in general, just a broader swath, are going to like you. And then there's just not enough appetite to muster up significant opposition. No one is going to primary Josh Shapiro. Okay. Like, progressives hated his guts in 24. The amount of shit he got on Twitter was insane. But what happened? Josh Shapiro is the most popular Democratic governor in America right now for a swing state. And the biggest reason for that is because the dude is just viewed as a competent guy who wins, and he does good shit that liberals broadly like. And so there's no appetite to primary him. There's no organized opposition to him, because you can't when you're in power and you're popular. That's just the next Democratic leader really is going to have. They're going to have competing wings, obviously, as any admin will. But, like, do you guys remember when Biden got to office? And people loved the dude in the Democratic wing for the first year and a half. They called him most progressive president of my lifetime. They loved him. And then right after the 2022 midterms, he was like royalty in a lot of Dem circles. People loved the guy because they're like, wow, we avoided a red wave. Like, Biden's strategy worked. We got the IRA. And then once Israel-Palestine happened, that split a rift in everything because of his handling. But even then, when did Biden's standing really become toxic among Democrats? It was the debate. That's when people are like, hey, he's losing, kick him out.
So I have a quick question then. So you're talking about Josh Shapiro's proven record, like people kind of, I don't want to say bandwagoning, but jumping in with a winner with that proven track record. The conversation that we always have, the Hutch Pisco debates about should we move more left, should we move more center, are one thing. If Mamdani or any of these more progressive people do end up winning and do end up establishing policies that work, and have an established, group like Shapiro does in Pennsylvania, like Mamdani would have then in New York. Do you see that shifting the conversation, regardless of what people should do now? That's going to change the voter-based demographics because of those proven results, if that does happen?
I think in New York City, it totally could, right? Like, I think New York City, if Mamdani wins, governs responsibly, has a lot of success, people look at him and they're like, wow, New York City is booming under this dude. Like, yeah, it could change the calculus. His endorsement would become one of the most coveted things nationally. Y'all remember Rudy Giuliani in 2008, right? Like, there's no reason that Mamdani wouldn't enjoy a lot of support if people viewed New York as doing super well under him. I happen to be more skeptical that would happen, but I'm open to being proven wrong.
But he's going to be somewhat limited in terms of being able to deliver on his full agenda. So I wonder if he's going to pivot to, positioning himself as like a foil to Donald Trump. And like, that's how he's going to, brand himself first and foremost. But, we'll see. But, I want to segue into a conversation about this idea of a left-wing Tea Party movement. Because I feel like this tension that I've been speaking to recently and it's emerged on the podcast from time to time, I feel like this runs the risk of reaching a boiling point that might even eclipse the sort of infighting intention that we saw in 2016. Like, there's a lot, as you said, a lot of anger out there within the electorate, not even just with progressives. I mean, there's just a lot of rage right now. And yet you hear people like Kyle Kulinski, for example, speak about a left-wing Tea Party movement as though that would be a really good thing. You have concerns. Can you talk a little bit more about what that might look like and what are the potential pitfalls?
Okay, so people want a left-wing Tea Party because the last time the right-wingers had one, they remade the party, they won 240 House seats, and then they ended up winning the presidency in 2016, right? That was the logic. There is a world in which a left-wing Tea Party could succeed and remake the party. I concede that. I'm not going to be dumb enough to say that nothing is possible in politics. But what also happened last time the right wing had a Tea Party? Okay, let's think about it. Well, when the right wing had a Tea Party, they lost 4 winnable Senate seats in 2010 because they nominated absolute complete morons on the basis of sticking it to the establishment. Therefore, they rejected qualified nominees in favor of people that had no business running for public office. As a result, Republicans did not win the Senate, and they were stuck out of power for 4 more years and could only take the Senate back in 2014, because in 2010 and 2012, they had people like Richard Murdoch, they had people like Todd Akin, I Am Not a Witch, Christine O'Donnell, Sharon Angle. And these are not serious people. These are not serious candidates. And when I see the Democrats nominating, or not nominating, but like seriously considering people like Graham Plattner, who has a literal Nazi tattoo that he called My Totenkopf.
It's a wolf tattoo now, just a quick fact check.
Great, lovely.
Hey, he covered it up.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, Lakshya, on that, I saw the polling happen like the day after that reporting, and he was up, but I think that might have been without the information on the SS tattoo thing. And then we saw another poll, or I keep seeing it like make the rounds on the internet, that show him down to Mills, but I think the question was asked in potentially biased ways. So what's your overall take on the polling? What do you see happening with that? Is there this kind of Democratic progressive Tea Party base that's going to say, I don't give a crap what kind of tattoo he has, just vote for him? Or is that actually going to significantly shift the outcome?
In that one in particular, I think Plattner's going to lose. That one in particular, I think he will lose. And the reason I think he will lose is because everyone is fleeing his campaign. They're all just out. He's lost the second campaign manager in a week. Yeah. I know the guy's like, oh, it's because I just found out I had a baby. Like, please, okay.
It's just not very plausible, is it?
Bullshit. Yeah.
It's like,
that's found out he had a baby.
I want to ask this, right? Look at how Graham Plattner was exciting people. Do you think Obama 2004, if his campaign manager found out I'm having a baby in 8 months, do you think that guy would resign?
No way.
No. Like, this is a cover up, right? Like,
9 months.
I don't think that's an excuse. And I think really Plattner is going to lose because people are just jumping ship on him. And there's probably more oppo to come given how early all of this dropped. But Jasmine Crockett's running in Texas probably, right? At the moment, she says she wants to run in Texas. That's like the single worst nominee we could pick in the entire state. I guarantee you find literally any Democrat and they will probably do better than that.
Do you think she might have a secret Nazi tattoo?
A secret what?
a secret Nazi tattoo, Jasmine Crockett.
No, I hope not.
Okay.
Here's what I'm concerned about, which with Plattner stuff. Sorry, Guy, if you want to.
Go ahead.
What I'm concerned about are that for Janet Mills, she's old as hell, and I totally understand why people want fresh blood. And I even expressed this in a previous episode that we did, where I'm just like, I'm so tired of running the old guard, because just like running some of these populists, but like potentially have some dangers, as you mentioned in the Senate races that Republicans sort of lost. I think running geriatric candidates and like old guard people has its own set of risks, including, by the way, that sometimes the way these people govern is fucking annoying. And so I'm frustrated. I know the people in Maine. I've lived in Maine for a time, and there are kind of particular people, and I understand that it's like hard from a top-down perspective to get in there and like select candidates and craft the perfect candidate. But I'm certainly as someone who's frustrated by the Plattner stuff and thinks that it shows a huge lack of judgment on his part, but also frustrated at the notion that we're going to elect another 77-year-old senator.
And just I really quickly want to supplement that question, Lakshya. It seems like you even pointed out that the time that people pivoted off of Biden was when he had his like octogenarian moment in that debate, and people are worried about that happening with Janet Mills. Because it's so early, do you think that Plattner could be supplanted by another progressive, or is it way too late at this point and Mills might be like the best option for progressives if they move off of Plattner?
Let me take that one at a time.
Yeah, sorry.
So, Pisco, understand me when I say I am with you on Janet Mills not being my optimal candidate. I cannot believe we are about to run a 79-year-old. I do not think that Maine is limited to a choice. I don't think Maine should have been limited to a choice between a dude with a Nazi tattoo on his chest and a 79-year-old geriatric incumbent who, frankly speaking, is not even that popular. Like, I don't think that this is a great way for Democrats to go. This is not like we have two great options. We have one suboptimal option, and then we have one really bad option in Graham Plattner. But like, the way I see it is, look, Mills is probably still favored in a blue midterm against Collins, who's way more unpopular now than she was in 2018 and 2020. And especially considering that Maine is a blue state in a blue year. That's my thought on why Janet Mills could at least win the race. And look, she wins the race and Dianne Feinstein's her way out. I don't care. We'll deal with the problems when that happens. But like, let's win that race first. Let's get her out of power. The second thing, what exactly would, and look, I might get this question wrong, but I think you're asking more about like, can another left-wing candidate emerge? I don't think so at this point, because Plattner is not going to drop out. And if Plattner is not going to drop out and no other progressive candidate is really willing to take the mold, you know, I don't really know if another one's going to run, especially because Mills has a really good team. Like, Mills' team was the one that like dropped all of this shit like right away. They're brutal. They're really, really cutthroat. I know some of the people that she's hired, like, they're very good at what they do. And I don't think a progressive insurgent is going to get in at this point against Mills. That's just my 2 cents. I think in that race, that's gone. But I think in a lot of other places, you're going to see progressives really try to like beat up the old guard. You're going to see Dan Goldman get primaried by Brad Lander probably. And like, that's, you know, Lander would win that.
No shot. You think Lander wins that?
Yeah, I do.
Lander would beat Goldman.
Wow. Goldman has a fortune though.
Yeah, but Lander is actually in tune with his district.
But Lander's a loser.
Why is he a loser? Wait, why is he a loser? Because he lost the mayor.
He ran for mayor and he got his ass kicked.
I think it was a respectable showing, and
he's like that guy Scott, whatever his name is, the controller. What's it? Scott Stringer, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not New York City, but I think he's a loser, like Scott Stringer. Perennial loser.
Isn't he the dude accused of like sexual misconduct?
Stringer?
Yeah, Stringer.
The only Stringer I know is Stringer Bell.
No, Scott Stringer. 2021, his campaign imploded in part because of the Me Too allegations against him.
I don't know. He just runs every year, every 4 years, and loses, and so I don't know. But as far as Maine goes, it's like the oldest state in the union, right? With like its population, so there's a bunch of old people up there. So I don't think they have a problem with an old person. And Janet Mills was like one of Chuck Schumer's like prime recruitments. Like, he was stoked to get her. So I think they're feeling pretty good about her winning up there.
No, I mean, like I said, I think Mills wins. I just don't like the fact that we're running a super old candidate because, you know, shit could happen. She could just deteriorate rapidly. I'm sure all of you guys have had really old relatives. You've seen how they've declined. Look, like, I've seen people go from fully cogent, capable of running like literally thousands of people, corporations, and meetings to basically just shells of themselves within 8-9 months. I've seen it happen.
Happens.
Yeah.
But Pisco, let me ask Pisco.
Yeah.
Pisco, if Bernie was on the ballot in 2028, would you vote for him in the primary?
In the primary, 2028?
Everybody. Yeah, who cares? If Bernie's on the ballot, you wouldn't vote for him because of his age?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm with Pisco on that one. As much as he aligns closest with what I want, it's just like, dude, what is he now? Like 82?
Age doesn't matter to me. I don't give a shit because it's about the people they hire around them to get the job done. Like,
if the Joe Biden experience, and I love IRA, I just want to say this, I love IRA. If the age thing doesn't matter to you at this point, then I can't believe you missed the lesson of Joe Biden. I mean, that was the lesson. We can't keep doing the same mistakes.
Well, I'm not looking for Eleanor Holmes to run for re-election. Okay, I'm if you can have a decent debate performance, if Joe Biden hit a single or a double in that debate instead of just airballing over and over again, then
This
it would have
is
been
a classic Democrat speaking because he just said hit a single or double instead of airballing. What sport are we
whatever.
Wait,
You know what I mean?
Can I say no to that? I almost think, and Lakshya, tell me what you think of this. I think it might have been a blessing in disguise that Joe Biden fucked up when he did, because I'm concerned that if he hadn't had a historically horrible debate performance, we might have been stuck with him for the actual election, and we would have lost big.
I think
we would have had to be.
We
would have had to be even worse map. I feel like I mean, you could probably speak to that better than I can. But like, would the Republicans' House majority have been bigger? Would their Senate majority have been bigger?
Shit on Biden. Shit on Biden. We love this.
Normal Biden performance, okay? Not shit the bed debate. Normal Biden debate.
Let's just take Biden where he was, like, let's say he had we can't just pretend the debate would never have happened. It would have been a debate. Let's say you got like a mediocre Biden. What would have happened with Biden is he probably would have ended up losing Arizona by enough to endanger Ruben Gallego. He would have lost Nevada by more, and Jackie Rosen would have been in trouble. Maybe you can make the case. I wouldn't make this case, but maybe you can make the case he does slightly better in Pennsylvania and Bob Casey wins. I won't fight you on that. But like, we lose Nevada's Senate seat, we'd lose Arizona's Senate seat, we'd lose a bunch more House seats in places like California where Adam Gray scraped by like 215 votes. So yeah, I think if we ran Biden, we'd be worse off in a lot of places. I think you're getting to the point at that place where we lose a whole bunch of states we have no business losing, and then we're thinking about like, shit, how do we counter the Republicans' 56-seat Senate majority?
Right. So I see the tattoo thing, and I'm pulling my hair out because I don't really know a lot about this Plattner guy. And I'm like, we're making the same mistakes in a lot of respects. And the fact that we don't have a challenger to a 77, 78, whatever, she's 79 or 77. Anyway, whatever, really fucking old person. It feels like we are now, at least in the context of the main Senate seat, inexorably led down this path of doing the same thing again. And that is driving me insane. And I know that like, and what you say right here is like, well, I don't really think that there'll be another challenger because Plattner won't want to get out of the race. Another egomaniac who can't, whatever. But
do you think he's going to get out of the race?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I don't think that you're wrong about that. I'm just saying it just does feel like the mechanics in Maine is leading to us doing the same stuff. And that is driving me absolutely crazy. It's making me want to like tear my hair out.
Well, I just want to jump in and say, like, so Mills is not my ideal candidate either, but if she unseats Susan Collins, who's been sitting there for 30 years, I'm going to be happy with that result.
Yeah,
like,
I'd be happy if it was a fucking like, I don't know, some person who, like some criminal unseated Susan Collins. I'd be happy with like anyone who is able to unseat Susan Collins. My concern is she won't be able to, and that she might have some issues when she needs to, I don't know, run again for re-election.
No. Just look at the fundamentals of the race, okay? Like with the fundamentals of that race, she absolutely should unseat Susan Collins. Again, Collins is 73, right? She's going to be 74, I think. She's not some spring chicken. It's not like she's like some charismatic young candidate that's got like 30 years ahead of her. She's not Jared Golden. This is Susan Collins. She's much more unpopular. Maine is a D+8 state. In a D+5 year, you're looking at a D+13 baseline. Collins overperforms, maybe by double digits, she still loses. So I think any Democrat that's just baseline generic replacement level is going to be good enough to beat Susan Collins. Mills is fine. Like, I don't like her, but again, she's like fine. I think that's really what we're looking at.
Yeah, the age conversation is the
real quick. Hutch, I do want to, because we could go on with this, but I know you have to go in a few minutes, Lakshya. And I saw that comment from Straight Arrayed about Dems losing big. I think it was sarcastic, and the idea that Dems did lose big in 2024. And this is a very popular sentiment of like, oh my God, landslide, it was disgusting. And your implication here was that it could have been way worse, especially if Biden had been in the general. Can you just kind of address like how bad the loss was in 2024, how much worse it could have been? Because I see this narrative all the time, and I kind of want to dispel it.
Let me lay something out for the audience, which is that right now I can give you an easy path to Democrats winning the Senate in 2028. You win Maine and North Carolina in 2026. Okay, that gets you to 49. You hold all your current Senate seats. That's not even a fantastic midterm. That's just a normal average midterm. You win those 2 Senate seats, you're at 49. Okay, now 28 comes around. These are the seats that were up in 2022. 28 comes around. You win in Wisconsin, that gets you to 50. You get a Democrat winning the presidency, gets you to 51. Bang, right? Because the vice president acts as a tiebreaker. All of a sudden, you won the Senate. Congratulations. Now, let's just think about what would have happened if Democrats, for whatever reason, lost 2 more Senate seats in 2024. Let's say Democrats are at 45 Senate seats now instead of 47. What happens? Those 3 flips that I just labeled to get you from 47 to 50 get you from 45 to 48. All of a sudden, President Newsom or President AOC is walking in with a Republican Senate. And there is no way to get past that barrier unless you can somehow flip a state like, maybe you flip North Carolina again and you get to 49. Congratulations. How are you going to get to 50? Flip R plus 10 Ohio? Right now, we have a clear path to 51 Senate seats in 2028. It's literally just flip Maine and North Carolina in 26, flip North Carolina and flip Wisconsin in 2028. That's all. That's how close we are.
I know, but that's what's frustrating me, and why I want to take an even bigger step back. We bring up Ezra Klein a lot on this podcast. We're almost like a fucking React channel to Ezra Klein. But just like, let's take a big look at what the fuck we're doing here, and the bigger picture about why we're not competitive in rural states, why we're not competitive in every state, like we're in Montana, in Ohio anymore, Ohio and Florida, which were the perennial swing states. And my concern is we are playing for the short game, for the short race, because we just need to win this election. It's this election. And I agree with a lot of the urgency with the respective different races. But as I step back, I'm fearful that we're not taking a look at the bigger picture here. And that's why I have these broader concerns with Democratic leadership that I constantly raise, is because why is it the case? Why that we have to win and sneak in these margins? These like 50, 51 margins where, like, if we lose this one Senate race, then we're fucked for 6 years or 4 years or whatever it is. Why aren't we competitive in a broader way? And I think it has something to do with what you brought up, Lakshya, initially, which is, why is Schumer unpopular? He's unpopular because the Democratic Party, I think by your words, the most unpopular political institution in this country. That seems like a problem.
It is. Look, for all the shitting that I do on Zohran, okay, like where I say like, hey, this guy isn't popular, please, like, let him just run New York City, don't take him nationally. For all the shit I say there, I'm going to say one more thing, which gets a lot of the establishment Dems mad at me. I think that, firstly, like I said last time, if Bernie would have won in 2016, we would have been having very different conversations right now. I also think that the ceiling that the Bernie left has is much higher than the ceiling that the Democratic Party of Joe Biden has. I think this is why. Bernie is a political figure, and hopefully the people that listen to him more can take this lesson, right? People like who I thought Plattner was before the whole fucking tattoo disaster. If you focus on economics, there is a significant constituency in this nation for more liberal economics if you just do a laser focus on that. If you do that, there is a real constituency for true, like, more left-wing liberal policies. The thing is, what Bernie realized and what the others didn't is that you have to moderate on certain aspects to get there. What did Bernie moderate on? Bernie moderated on guns and immigration. Bernie was big into saying that, like, immigration is something he's very hawkish on. He came out a couple days ago and he said on the Tim Dillon show, of all things, hey, Trump did a better job than Biden on securing the border, which is like, okay, like, I don't agree with him, but that's the type of thing that I've been telling establishment Democrats, you guys need to say shit like this, because if you want to push support for left-wing policies economically, people are not going to do that unless you give them the security, you give them the assurance that you're not also trying for a globalist vision that they have no appetite for. And the thing is, I am a globalist, so that is extremely frustrating to me. I think terrorists are stupid. I hate half of what Jared Golden says. I just tolerate it because they win. And that's the thing, right? Like if Bernie, if someone like from Bernie's wing, from the left wing, came about and had a bold left wing idea that was like, you know, in a way that I saw could clearly win a national election. And I'm not talking about Zohran or AOC. I'm talking about someone in the vein of Bernie coming back and saying, I'm going to, you know, have these weird heterodox views on guns and immigration. Even if I find them stupid, I would be their biggest supporter, because that movement can get you back mountain states like Montana. It can get you back states like Kansas. It can get you back states like Ohio. It can win the Midwest. That's the type of thing that has super, super, super high ceilings, because it can remake the electoral map in ways that you never really thought possible.
What do you think of the Democratic Party's strategy of strategically backing off in Nebraska? Like, do you think that's a valid strategy? It looks like Osborne is going to run again in 2026.
That's not going to work again, but I think it was great the first time. It's not going to work again because people now know he's basically the de facto Democrat. But that was great the first time. We should do it more in states. We get like one shot at these things, and we should use that one shot wisely. And Osborne, to be clear, if 24 was, you know, a 2020-esque environment, Osborne might have won.
Well, listen, you said you could stay until 5:05. I don't want to take up too much of your time here, but
wait, we have 120 seconds, Hutch.
Okay, go.
Joe, what do you think about now that Hakeem Jeffries seems like he's finally going to endorse Mamdani, given all that you have said about the polling nationally? We have to talk about it because our podcast doesn't shut up about it. What do you think?
He did endorse him.
Yeah. Like, what are your thoughts of him, his final, like, coming around to doing that?
I was a bit surprised. I thought, given how unpopular Zohran was nationally, and I know Hakeem Jeffries knows about those numbers too, I was a bit surprised he did it. But I think it's good, because I don't want Andrew Cuomo being the next mayor. And if this helps solidify it, then great. It's also just good to show unity and, you know, get everyone on board. So, hey, great. Yeah, big deal.
All right.
Where can people find your stuff?
theargumentmag.com, and that's where we write a lot of our stuff. We just had a great piece today on immigration. We're going to have a lot more coming out soon.
Yeah, and his links are in the description, Twitter, and the argument article you had on Mamdani. So thanks so much for coming on, Lakshya. This has been great.
Guys.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, man.